Right, guys, and we are live here, week 14 coming up on the field, breaking down the best action from last week in college football and looking ahead to some conference championship matchups as the season is coming down to a close and the playoffs are on the horizon. I'm Steven, here back again, and with me is my co-host Alex. Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We had a really good, exciting weekend of football. Now we have the conference championships, have the big matchup here, Alabama and Georgia, have the rematch with Oregon and Washington. So just very excited.
Yeah, those two matchups in particular are the big dogs that we have this upcoming weekend. A lot on the line for the playoffs in those ones. Michigan seemingly easy matchup there after their big win over Ohio State. They're taking on Iowa. Florida State without Jordan Travis taking on Louisville for the ACC. And then in the Big 12, you got Texas, who have that big win over Bama. They're taking on Oklahoma State Cowboys. Alex, how much do you think that Texas is very happy that they're not playing Oklahoma right now instead?
I wish they would have been playing Oklahoma, and I'm pretty sure Texas wanted to get that revenge against Oklahoma. So a little disappointed that they had to play Oklahoma State. I think that's a lot easier matchup for them, but yes, it should be a good game regardless.
Yeah, the Longhorns heavily favored in that one. We'll break all these lines down a little bit later in the pod. For right now, let's start with wrapping up our Thanksgiving football here. Let's kick off first with Ole Miss taking on Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Alex, how'd you like this matchup on Thanksgiving Day?
Yeah, low scoring matchup. Uh, Definitely would have liked to see some more points. A pretty close game, so final score in this one, 17-7 in favor of Ole Miss. I said it before, a couple of weeks ago. Mississippi State with Will Rogers is a different team, and that showed in this game. He was finally back after coming off an injury, so definitely made it a little bit tough for Ole Miss there, but they pulled off the win. Nice 10-point win for them. They definitely didn't cover, but they got the job done, and they finished the regular season 10-2.
Yeah, close one for sure on the spread. I believe when we were breaking it down on overtime, this one was 10 even. So maybe just got a bit of a push on my end there, taking Ole Miss to cover the spread. But I also had a lot to like in the under here for this matchup. This Mississippi State team hasn't really put up a ton of points throughout the season, especially the past couple of weeks, and that Ole Miss defense really keeping this one in their favor much throughout. Very low scoring in the first half, and then Ole Miss just does enough in the second to break away. But a solid win for Ole Miss. I'm gonna look forward to them potentially sneaking into a New Year's Six. We'll see how the committee assesses them for some bowl games, but solid win nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely excited to see them potentially against maybe Penn State in a New Year's Six bowl would be pretty interesting. But yeah, I like this Ole Miss team.
Let's keep it rolling with the team that Texas is avoiding. They had this weekend in the Big 12, Oklahoma with a huge win over TCU. They went 69-45. They also improved to 10-2 on the season. Just a monster day for some classic Big 12 offense, and over easily hitting this one. Alex, anything for you to cover for the Sooners?
Yeah, they didn't look so good in this game. They won, but I mean they gave up 45 points to a TCU team that lost to Colorado. Um, they easily hit 114 total points, over easily hit. But yeah, Oklahoma didn't look so good, which is pretty surprising because in the win against Texas, they had that fourth and goal stand to keep Texas from scoring. I think, and against UCF, they also had another goal line stand. So their defense looked really good in those games, and then after that, their defense just is looking like USC and LSU. So I don't know what happened to their defense, but they got the job done. They had 10 wins on the season. Not a bad year for them.
Yeah, definitely not much defense needed when your offense is putting up nearly 70 points. But like you mentioned, LSU, I think LSU would be a pretty interesting matchup for this Oklahoma school come bowl time. Maybe a potential New Year Six. Uh, Ton of offense in that one. Maybe we get a spread over under around 100. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think we just talked about LSU. They also had a pretty nice victory, 42-30. So Texas A&M actually had their backup quarterback in, Jalen Henderson. He actually looked really good in the first half. Finished 25 out of 35, 294 yards in the air, two touchdowns and one interception. I think it was in that second half, that third quarter. I was watching the game. He was looking really good. I mean, he looked a lot better than the quarterback that they had before, Max Johnson. And that actually looked like at times that Texas A&M was going to take over, but thankfully they didn't. LSU got the job done, and they hit the over as well. Um, LSU in those overs is always a pretty good pick. So we got the job done there. We had a combo with LSU winning and the over.
Yeah, this one was a little bit sweaty there in the third quarter with Texas A&M up by 10 and LSU behind in a pretty low scoring affair so far. It was 24-14, and then Jaden Daniels does what he likes to do best and just puts on a ton of offense in the second half that propels the Tigers to a dub, a spread cover, and another over hit. Brian Kelly going for 9-3 on the regular season, and definitely give Jaden Daniels a ton of that credit. Malik Neighbors, week in and week out, especially last couple weeks, he's been insanely solid. Getting upfield, getting some offense going quickly for them in the air, and just overall solid showing from LSU this season. I'd like to see them in the upcoming bowl games. Interested to see who they take on. May or may not back them, depending on who they get placed up against.
Yeah, I think I saw some predictions. I saw them. Somebody had them matched up against your team, Notre Dame. I don't want to see them play Notre Dame. Their defense is too good, and
Yeah.
I think I think almost any team can score on LSU with that defense. But Notre Dame's defense is pretty good, so they might be able to stop Jaden Daniels. So hopefully they don't play.
Would be an interesting coaching matchup for sure, but I'd like to see a team with a weaker defense take on LSU. Would love to see a shootout of sorts. So definitely keep the Irish away from LSU. Let's keep it rolling here with some more of Friday big matchups from Friday. We had Mizzou traveling on the road, taking on Arkansas. This is one of the games I liked a ton, especially for the parlay. Mizzou covering easily the line, 9.5 toward game time. I believe it was around 7.5 when we broke it down on Wednesday. So a bit of value there. And Luther Burden and Brady Cook propelling this offense to an over. A lot to like for Mizzou winning big 48-14. Alex, what'd you like the most?
Yeah, Cody Schrader's a beast. We said it when they were about to play Georgia. That guy, I mean, he had 217 yards on the ground. He leads the SEC in rushing yards. That guy had a monster season. Brady Cook didn't look so bad either. 12 out of 20, only 112 yards, but he got the job done. Two touchdowns. Missouri, one of my favorite teams on the season. 10-2. Gotta love what Eli Drinkwitz is doing at Missouri. He got the team ready. Big, 10-2 season. They're ranked number 9. So hopefully they get a big New Year's Six bowl and finish the season with, an exclamation point.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Definitely would love to see them take one of those spots, and honestly think whoever they get matched up against, they'd easily beat, unless they somehow get matched up against Ohio State, although I have a hot take. For them later, I don't think that they'll make the playoff, but I think they'll get placed with somebody currently projected to make the playoff. So Mizzou would love to see and back whoever they take on in their likely to be New Year's Six Bowl. Yeah, just an insane game all around. Handled very easily from start to finish. I'm very happy that hit for the pod. Moving into one of the other big games from the weekend, you had this red hot Oregon Ducks team taking on state rival Oregon State. They win convincingly 31-7, cover yet another spread. Bo Nix, solid performance, 33 for 40, 367 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Just an incredible performance from him as he hones in on hopefully a Heisman Award, and they take on Washington this weekend to right one of their wrongs from early in the season. What'd you like from the Ducks this weekend, Alex?
Yeah, Tez Johnson, their wide receiver, looked really impressive. He had 11 receptions for 137 yards. Bo Nix looked really good as well. 33. He only had 7 incompletions, 367 yards in the air. I mean, the Oregon looks like one of the more complete teams on both sides of the ball. On offense, they look really good. They only let Oregon State score 7. So yeah, they look really good, and now they have a chance to get revenge on their only loss, which I think that they shouldn't have lost. They only lost because of Dan Lanning going for it 2 times on 4th down instead of taking the field goal. But I think their field goal kicker also missed some field goals. I think he missed one in this game, and then I know for sure he missed a field goal in the game before this one. So maybe that's why they didn't take the kicks there. So hopefully it doesn't come down to a field goal, because I'm not too confident in this field goal kicker for Oregon. But other than that, they look really good.
Yeah, it's a very risky Oregon side. They like to go for it, go for 2, especially after scoring some touchdowns. We saw them that in back-to-back touchdown drives against USC a couple weeks ago. But the analytics loves this team. The narrative loves this team and their quarterback. And they have a pretty sizable spread, actually, to cover up against the Huskies this weekend. And we can break down that matchup a little bit later in the pod. But I mean, this might be one of my teams that I'm riding for and rooting for in the end of this season here. Somebody that hasn't been ranked near the top all season, like a Georgia or a Michigan, but has had to face a bit of adversity and has performed well throughout. Hoping so that the Ducks can make it into the playoff, and if and when they do, I'll be backing them for sure. Let's go to the other side of the coin in the Pac-12. We had Washington taking on Washington State, and this one was a bit of a doozy, as Washington had a 16, at the time of our recording, it was a 16 and a half, 17 points spread to cover against Washington State. And I was riding on the narrative that Washington has been scraping out dubs all season. They don't look pretty, but they end up getting the job done. So I actually backed Washington State plus the points. And that game pretty much summed up pretty much to be exactly that. Washington was up 21-14. Washington State elect to go for the field goal, and then they got a leaping penalty, which made it 1st and goal for Washington State, who sequentially tied the game at 21 late in the football game when Washington made a bold call on 4th and short in the 4th quarter to go for it, not give Washington State the ball back, and it paid off dividends as they ran a trick play to Rome Odunze up the left side, and they eventually get a late field goal to win it. What a doozy. Washington improves to 12-0. Alex, were you watching this game? What were your thoughts in that moment?
Yeah, I thought they were gonna lose. Once I saw the score, I turned on the game. It was late. I mean, Washington only scored 3 points in the 4th quarter. 3 points, just enough to get the game winning field goal. Yeah, again, like you said, Washington doesn't always look good, but they get the job done, and they finished 12-0. Yeah, I wish they would have looked a lot better in Oregon. Would have looked a lot worse, so we could get some better odds for the game because right now it's pretty one-sided. But we can talk about that, later in the podcast.
Yeah, close one for sure for Washington. Michael Penix, solid day, but did have one mistake throwing an interception. But overall, the narrative for this Husky team all season hasn't looked pretty, but getting the results when needed to. In terms of not looking pretty, but getting the results, let's go over to Florida State, taking on Florida. No Jordan Travis, unfortunately, due to his injury last week. And Florida State found themselves in some pretty murky waters in the swamp early in this one. They were down 12-0 early, but they get a touchdown right before the end of the first half and eventually chip away, winning this one 24-15, covering a 6.5 point spread. Unfortunately, the over did not hit in this one, failing one leg in one of my parlays. But Florida State, another team that improves to 12-0 on the season. Alex, how does this team look like to you? How'd they perform in your eyes?
They're not the same team without Jordan Travis, which is it's a shame because especially after that first game of the season where they played LSU. I mean, they just completely dominated them, and they were looking like a real playoff team. But without Jordan Travis, I mean, this game was the battle of the backup quarterbacks. Roadmaker only 134 yards. Max Brown for Florida only 86 yards. Florida State didn't look so good. But yeah, it's just a completely different team without Jordan Travis, and might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think even if Florida State beats Louisville this weekend, I don't think they should be one of the four teams to get in. And I said that at the beginning of the season when we started doing our podcast that Florida State was one of my teams to win the whole thing, but yeah, without Jordan Travis, just a completely different football team.
Wow, I agree with you in the sense that this team has fundamentally shifted in terms of their play and how solid they have looked without Jordan Travis. I'm just shocked to hear you say that they shouldn't be in, even if they win this weekend. This is the team you've been backing all season. It hurts my heart a little bit, but part of me also agrees with you in the sense that they sneak into the college football playoff, and you're giving Georgia a relatively easy matchup, maybe a game that turns into a blowout and isn't as exciting as, say, like a Texas or maybe Ohio State sneaks their way in there, or Alabama even, depending on what happens between them and Georgia. But yeah, just a completely season halting, season impacting, shifting injury last weekend. They scrape out a dub in this one against the Gators, but all their hopes might have been lost last weekend. Yeah, tough one for sure for Florida State. But in brighter pastures, I guess we could shift over to the Arizona Wildcats and their red hot offense. They easily take care of Arizona State. They put up 59 points in a big win, winning 59-23. And capping off a pretty solid season at 9-3 overall, pretty surprising in most people's projections. Anything for you, Alex, on Arizona?
Yeah, they looked really good, putting up lots of points. Their quarterback Noah Fafita, 527 yards with 5 touchdowns. This guy, if he comes back next year, he's definitely going to be in the mix for the Heisman. I mean, Arizona at the beginning of the year, they had a different quarterback. They didn't look so good. Once they switched over to Noah, they just looked like a completely different team, scoring lots of points. They had the close game against Washington, one loss, or 1 point loss in overtime against USC. But yeah, definitely a very good football team. Great offense. Yeah, I'm excited to see how they look next year with this quarterback coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Will be interesting to see Arizona next season, especially as they move into the Big 12 and coming off of a hot season this year. Let's shift over from a high-scoring game to a insanely low-scoring game, and one that we joked about a bit on the pod last week, Alex. We had Iowa on the road taking on Nebraska in a game that Nebraska was actually favored somehow by 2 points when we were breaking it down, and the over-under was set at an absurd 26.5. And Alex, this one comes in Iowa 13, Nebraska 10. So another under hitting. And Iowa winning outright as an underdog. Vegas thought they had something up their sleeves in that one, but Iowa proving yet again that their defense is solid, and they win another close, low-scoring game. I think that's going to change for them soon this upcoming weekend, taking on Michigan. But anything other than that shocking low score surprising you, Alex?
Yeah, nothing really surprising here. Another under hitting for Iowa. Yeah, I think we should have realized a long time ago that Iowa and the unders were definitely the best bet. But yeah, just no offense from Iowa. They're gonna get destroyed by Michigan here in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, definitely back to that call. That game's going to be an easy win for Michigan. And then moving on to another team that has some playoff hopes alive. Texas Longhorns taking on Texas Tech, winning big 57-7, easily covering their spread of it was 14.5 when we were breaking it down last week, and it closed off at 16.5, over hitting just by their offense alone. I think Texas Longhorns, they're taking on Oklahoma State this weekend. I think they have a lot of hopes to maybe squeak in as that 4 seed. Alex, anything you like from them? I know Ewers back playing again. 1 touchdown, 1 interception on the day. How far can this team go?
Yeah, I think they have a good chance to sneak in. I would even sneak them in over an undefeated Florida State, just because they have one of the best ones in the country. Yeah, it would have been a lot better for them if they got to play Oklahoma and avenge their loss. But yeah, they look really good. Put up lots of points. Quinn Ewers is back. We saw Arch Manning play in there for a couple of plays. Xavier Worthy looks good. CJ Baxter, their backup running back, is now in, so he looked really good as well. Yeah, Texas looks. They haven't looked as good, for the final stretch of the season, but they definitely have potential, and I think they can compete with the big boys in the top 4.
Yeah, definitely would like to see how they fare if they are gifted a spot. The games that they have won, they've done so pretty convincingly. Had 1 or 2 close scares throughout the season, especially a close shootout game between them and Oklahoma. And it's tough they can't avenge their loss, like, say, a team like Oregon is looking to do this upcoming weekend. So Texas is definitely a team to watch, especially even if they lose this upcoming weekend conference championship. Might have some implications for some other teams, so definitely going to be a good one for them this weekend. Let's roll right along into Penn State, Michigan State. James Franklin taking on a non-top 10 opponent, so the Nittany Lions definitely came out with a dub. They win this one 42-0. Michigan State putting up no points, very similar to their games against Ohio State and Michigan. This one with the under just squeaking by 42.5. Got the call right there. Thank you to Michigan State for not putting up any points. Penn State finishes the season only losing to Ohio State and Michigan, and looking convincing in all their other games. Does that just tell you how lopsided the Big Ten is, Alex? Or is Penn State rightfully up there in like the top 12 or so?
Nah, I think they're definitely in the top 12. They're a really good football team. Have really good defense. Maybe not as creative as maybe not really creative on offense, but the defense is really good. I wouldn't want them to play Missouri. Hopefully, they play somebody like Tulane for a New Year's Six bowl. But yeah, Penn State's really good. their head coach is not as bad as they make it seem. I mean, no one loses to Ohio State and Michigan, two of the best teams in the country. So yeah, I like this Penn State team.
Yeah, definitely solid, and I'll agree with you there. One of the better defensive teams in the country. So if they avoid Mizzou, that'd be fun to see Brady cook. But yeah, just another unfortunate season for Penn State. They got two of the biggest teams in college football in their direct division there in the Big Ten. But they handled this one easily, and got three big matchups, I believe, left for us to cover in terms of the two big SEC schools and then the game itself. Let's do a quick little rapid fire. We had ND with a 26-point spread against Stanford, taking on Stanford on the road, and was wrong on this one. Back Stanford plus the points. Alex, a big showing for the Fighting Irish in their final game of the regular season. Big day for Audric Estime with 4 touchdowns. Sam Hartman in his last game for the regular season for the Irish. What'd you like for them here?
Yeah, Audric Estime, that guy's a beast. I mean, he had 238 yards on the ground. Definitely one of the better running backs in the country. They got the job done, put up 56 points. Yeah, I really don't want to see them play LSU, but I think they will. I think they will match them up. But yeah, I wish they didn't play LSU, but should be a good game and not a bad season for Notre Dame. They go 9-3. They're ranked 16th in the AP. Had only a close loss to Ohio State, lost to Louisville, lost to Clemson, but yeah, not a bad Notre Dame team.
Yeah, definitely not a bad team in the slightest, but I feel for them like this season overall has to be chalked up as a loss. It seemed like everything fell apart right after that sloppy and close loss at home to Ohio State, and they lose on the road the following week to Louisville. And their last tough matchup of the season on the road in Clemson. Almost nothing really to fight for there as a 2-loss team, and they lose that one pretty handily to the Clemson Tigers. So could be seen as a W of a season in some respects, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame's always trying to get another one of those championships. They haven't done so in a while, and the past couple of years when they did make it to the college football playoff, they were easily disposed of. So you'd like to see them string together an undefeated season and look pretty solid in the playoffs coming up. That would be a step in the direction that a Notre Dame fan would like to see, and not just lose the big games that they have each year. But solid showing in the games that they should come out and win. Big spread to cover. And moving right along, let's go over to Kentucky taking on Louisville. At the time, Louisville was 10-1. They're at home, and Kentucky 7.5-point spread to cover. They were my outright dog of the week. Kentucky walks away with this one with a W, winning 38-31 with some second half magic. Alex, as somebody who might be liking Louisville to beat Florida State this weekend, what'd you think of from the Cardinals here in this one, dropping one late?
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised or completely surprised. But yeah, I thought Louisville had a better defense. But Ramon Davis had a really good game. Devin Leary, sometimes he has good games, sometimes he doesn't. He had a pretty good game against Tennessee. And this one, he had a good game again. Put out 206 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns. They looked really good. Kentucky started off 5-0, then lost a couple, I think 3 straight games. Just had a brutal schedule, but I think that definitely played in their favor, having to play all those tough teams back to back to back, and they get the job done here. A win by 7 points. And now Louisville gets to play Florida State, and this is also why I said that if Florida State beats Louisville this weekend, they shouldn't get in, because it would be a different thing if Louisville was still 10-1 or 11-1, but now they fall to 10-2 with losses to Kentucky and Pittsburgh. So I don't think beating Louisville this weekend for Florida State does enough to move the needle and get them into the top four.
Yeah, Louisville, one of those teams that won some very close and tough games, and then take a look back, their only two losses of the season were at home to Kentucky, in which they were favored, and then a mysterious one when they were traveling on the road to take on Pitt. And maybe it's just coming down to, there's the SEC school in Kentucky that's been battle tested and had a bunch of tough opponents the prior weeks, and then taking on an ACC school in Louisville that gave them the edge in this one, a little bit more of a tough road to battle test them and get them ready for a matchup like this. Or it's just, one of those days where Kentucky was able to string together some plays in the second half, take advantage of the momentum that they were building up there in the third quarter. But at the end of the day, not a good look for the ACC, and even if Florida State is to get that win, like you said, it's a little bit watered down now because of Louisville's loss here. But very happy with Kentucky, able to get the win outright. And moving on, I think it's time to finally break down the big games from this weekend. Let's save the Alabama and Auburn clash for a bit longer. Let's start with Georgia taking on Georgia Tech. And Georgia had a big spread to cover in this one, but they only win by 8, 31-23. Spread was 24.5. I think this is a classic case of the Bulldogs knowing they have it wrapped up and looking ahead to next week as they take on Alabama. Not the most impressive win by any margins, but a solid showing overall from Carson Beck and the Bulldogs. Alex, anything for you for this Georgia team?
Yeah, I won't hold this close game against Georgia. Alabama also had a close game, but yeah, at the end of the day, they got the job done. They got the W, and now they have Alabama this weekend. Super excited for that one. I'm gonna make a big cookout this weekend to watch that game with my dad. So very excited for this game.
Yeah, I think the Bulldogs much better than this scoreline is to tell. Georgia Tech's had some feisty games in them throughout this regular season. And, like you said, Alex, I think the big matchup against Alabama will be an all-timer. Speaking of, we had Alabama with some insane fourth quarter theatrics, traveling to Auburn for the Iron Bowl in a game where Auburn looked like they had everything wrapped up nice and neat. 4-point lead in the fourth quarter. They were about to get the ball back with about 5 or 6 minutes remaining. And it all just went downhill from there, Alex. Alabama goes to punt. Auburn whiffs receiving the punt in their own end. Alabama gets the ball back. And even then, it was 4th and goal at the 30-something. Jalen Milroe drops back and launches a deep one to the back left of the end zone, and Isaiah Bond comes up big. Alabama gets the touchdown late, up by 3. There was even what was apparently ended up being ruled out as a pick 6 at the end of the game. They sneak by and grab the win here late. But you were definitely right on Auburn. Like them plus the spread after it ballooned to 14 points. They had this one in their control throughout. What were your takes from this thrilling end to a game in the Iron Bowl, Alex?
Yeah, I said it before. Jordan Hare, some crazy stuff happens there. We had the kick 6. Usually the stuff happens goes in favor of Auburn, but not this time. 4th and goal from the 31. Definitely another one of those crazy endings to the series. And looking back at it, 14.5 was definitely a gift. But I knew this game would be close, so yeah. definitely one of the better games from this weekend, and Alabama gets the job done. With a couple seconds left on that the Milrow miracle.
Yes, the Milrow miracle. I like that one. I was kind of losing my mind here, especially because I had Alabama in one of my parlays, just straight up money line. I know you also had that one in yours, and very glad that they were able to come through for both of us. What a finish for the Crimson Tide. Definitely would have thought that they'd be able to at least win by more than 3 points. I know the line ballooned up to 14. But even then, I was still kind of backing Alabama to have a solid showing as they head into an SEC championship game, a matchup against Georgia. But now, a little bit more shaky on them. I know they've been performing well ever since their loss to Texas, but I think it might be some more of the same here for Georgia this upcoming weekend. And Alex, this brings us to the last game for us to cover, the big one from this weekend, the Big Ten. Essentially should be the Big Ten championship game in my eyes, but the annual matchup between Ohio State and Michigan, the game, this one was coming in at like a 3-point spread, 3-point underdogs for Ohio State. Last week at the time of recording, the over under 45.5. And Alex, both of you and I liked Ohio State plus the points in this one. A lot of the metrics favoring Ohio State in this one. Also, they outgained Michigan by about 40 yards. Just a couple mistakes throughout held them back. An early interception from Kyle McCord. And the Michigan Wolverines and Blake Corum especially pacing themselves to an easy victory in this one. It was close throughout, but they essentially whittled like the last 6 or so minutes off the game clock. Only gave Kyle McCord 40 seconds. And no timeouts there late in the fourth quarter to make some magic happen, and he throws his second pick of the game. So, a close one, but Michigan cover the spread. My lock of the week in the over, hitting fairly comfortably, especially considering Ohio State missed the field goal in the first half, right before halftime. Alex, did you have a fun one watching this game, 12 noon on Saturday?
Yeah, so this game actually in the first half was a little bit not as high paced as I would have hoped for. So I was going back and forth between this one and Texas A&M versus LSU, just because LSU always has the electric offense. But the story of this game is Honda McCord. I know a lot of the fans started calling him that just because Hondas are really reliable, and and Kyle McCord is not. So it's pretty ironic that they call him Honda McCord. But this guy throwing 2 interceptions, not a great performance by him. They lose by 6. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a pretty decent showing. Still had about 118 yards. But at the end of the day, it's tough to win when you throw 2 interceptions.
Yeah, Maserati Marv, as they were calling him from the announcing booth for the game, he did all he could. He was getting double teamed by Michigan for most of it. Ohio State opted to go more times than not on the ground with Trevion Henderson and Chip Trayanum when he was in there backing up. This Michigan team pretty solid on the line as well, limiting the run game. Ohio State got a couple good deep looks to Julian Fleming, and Cade Stover was always there in a pinch. Mekabuka picked up one of the touchdowns, but overall, at the end of the day, it was the Michigan Wolverines in the big house, the biggest game of the year for them. Their winning streak over Ohio State comes to 3 now. And a tough one for the Buckeyes, who were a little bit more battle-tested throughout the whole year. My early narrative on them was that Kyle McCord might be one of the people to hold them back when it comes time for the playoffs or this big matchup against Michigan. But over the last couple of weeks, he had looked like he was improving, playing some of his best football. And it all just kind of fell apart here in the last game of the regular season for them. So they're going to need a bit of a miracle. It's in order to get into the college football playoff, in my opinion. They're going to need Texas to lose, Alabama to lose, probably Florida State to lose as well. And then they are able to maintain maybe a top 4 spot. But things aren't looking that great for Ohio State. So I'd be interested to see who they get matched up with in a potential New Year's Six Bowl. But good win for the Harbaugh-less Michigan Wolverine, Sharon Moore, handling business once again. And Michigan covered the spread. So I believe that's all the big action from last weekend. Alex, you want to take a look ahead to conference championship weekend?
Yeah, for sure. So we have the big rematch between Washington and Oregon for the Pac-12 championship. Both of these teams are leaving the Pac-12, going to the Big Ten. So this is the last big Pac-12 championship here, and it's a rematch from earlier in the season. So I was actually pretty surprised when the odds came out. Oregon's pretty heavily favored. I think the spread's at +9 right now in favor of Oregon. Over-unders at 66. So, yeah, I'm going to go Oregon money line. I think 9 is a little much. Washington might be able to hang in there to at least cover the spread, but give me Washington to take revenge and win the Pac-12.
So you're saying what? Wait, so sorry, you said Oregon money line or Washington?
Oh, Oregon. Like I might have said Washington, but yeah, Oregon.
Yeah, no,
give me Oregon money line.
okay, you definitely said Oregon money line. Maybe I misheard you there. Oregon to take revenge against Washington. I'm there with you. I think Oregon definitely win this game. Not surprised actually to see the line this high. I was actually expecting something maybe around 6 or 7, just in the sense that it's a championship game for the Pac-12. But I think Vegas and the odds makers definitely have this right. I'm still going to back the Ducks to cover this spread. They have been on fire this whole season. They're now, I believe, like 9-2-1 against the spread on the season. Their one push was that 3-point loss to Washington earlier in the season in a game that they probably should have won. I'm going to roll with the Ducks again. I like Bo Nix to finish off the Heisman narrative here with a massive showing against their rival in Washington. I know 9.5 is seemingly a bit tougher, larger of a spread, especially since the last game was pretty close, but I think they got more fuel in the tank and more desire to get this one. And really, if they solidify a massive spread cover here, it not only helps their chances of getting into the playoff, but also maybe avoiding the 4 seed playing Georgia. Definitely want to take one of those 2 or 3 seeds, probably the 3 seed. Michigan will get the 2 seed. Georgia getting the 1. If that gives you any indication of how I think the Georgia-Alabama matchup's going to go a bit early. There you go. But yeah, give me Oregon here to cover the spread, and the over/under coming in. I think you said what, like 66. I actually have some sneaky opinions on the under here. I know the past couple of weeks and throughout most of the season, these two have been putting up massive numbers here, but I think Oregon is going to hold Washington in check. Washington hasn't been scoring a ton. They looked a little bit shaky against Washington State last week. I think this one's more in the realm of a high 30s, low 40s for Oregon and sub 21 for the Huskies. So give me Oregon, cover the spread, and the under for this matchup.
Yep, that's definitely a good pick. I don't think Oregon's going to get much help from Washington here just because they want revenge and their defense will step up. Oregon definitely doesn't want to finish, as the 4th seed. Last time they played Georgia, they got routed 49-3 last season. So definitely don't want to see Georgia in the semifinals. We also have Texas versus Oklahoma State for the Big 12 championship. Um, Pretty big favorite is Texas. They're favored by 15 points right now. Over unders at 55. I'm gonna keep it simple. Just Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, and CJ Baxter. I'm just complete beast. So I'll take Texas on the money line. Won't touch the spread, but I could definitely see them covering a 15-point spread pretty easily. Oklahoma State, pretty unreliable. They'll go out and win these big games against Oklahoma, and then get destroyed by lesser teams like UCF. So just no reliability for them. But give me Texas on the money line.
Yeah, I definitely love that play as well. Think they have pretty easy path to a W against the Cowboys. And I'm going to take it a little bit step further. I think with Ewers back, looking solid, this Texas team has been on a roll as of late. They've been winning big, comfortably the past, definitely last week. Close one against TCU, Kansas State, but they blew out BYU. Had a handy victory on the road against Iowa State. And Oklahoma State as well. They looked very shaky last week against BYU, almost blowing it in the second half. They get a solid comeback victory, winning in double overtime. I don't think they'll be able to keep this one close. Give me Texas even to cover the massive spread of 15 points right now, and dogpiling on that. I think this one goes way over 55. I think there's a lot of value in the over on this one. The books opened up at 54.5 this week. Already a little bit of movement. See about 58% of the bets and then 64% of the overall money on the over. I think there's a lot to like here for some classic Big 12 shootout in the conference championship game. So that'll be my takes for that one. Texas covering the spread and the over.
All right, we'll save Alabama versus Georgia for last. I think that's one of the better matchups for this week. We'll go into Florida State versus Louisville for the ACC championship. No Jordan Travis for Florida State. Louisville coming off that upset loss to Kentucky. This one's tough. I don't know. I could see either way. I could see this game going either way. Kind of a toss-up matchup. But just because we don't know how good Florida State is without Jordan Travis. Yeah, so the spread right now, Florida State's favored by 2.5. Over under at 47.5. Louisville has a pretty good, or at least I thought they had a pretty good defense, and then they let Kentucky score 38 on them. But I'm liking the under here so far. 47.5. I don't think Florida State will score that much. So yeah, give me the under here.
Yeah, I almost don't want to call this game just because of how drastic these two teams have shifted in my view over the last week and a half or so. Florida State, who are undefeated, but are severely going to be impacted by the loss of Jordan Travis, and a Louisville team that I personally haven't been too high on for most of the season, and they lose last week against Kentucky. If I had to lean one way, I'd say just roll with the Seminoles. I think their backup quarterback is solid, and with now 2 games under his belt, it's definitely going to be riding with a little bit more of momentum, a little bit more comfortability. And at the end of the day, this team hasn't lost yet. I'll take them. Give me them to cover the spread at 2.5. I do like your take on the under. Florida State were scoring a lot more early and often in the first half of this season, and the past couple weeks haven't been putting up too many points. And if Louisville is to keep this one close, they're definitely going to have to rely on their defense. So I do like the play for you on the under there in this matchup. But give me Florida State.
Yeah, the team that I picked to win it all. Well, so close. But yeah, I can't see them winning it all without Jordan Travis. So just a big disappointment there. I'll also have Michigan versus Iowa for the official Big Ten championship game. The real one was this past weekend between Ohio State and Michigan. This is going to be a blowout for Michigan. The spread's at 22, over-unders at 35. I think Michigan will score that by themselves. So Penn State beat Iowa 31-0. Give me Michigan to cover the spread and give me the over.
I'm right there with you on the over. I think Michigan can definitely put up 35 in their own right. But as Lee Corso loves to say on game day, stop right there. Give me the Hawkeyes to cover a chunk of a spread here at 22. This morning the spread was 23. We already see some action on the spread coming down a little bit. A lot of sharp action early on the Hawkeyes plus 23. You know, maybe there's something that I'm not taking into consideration. If you were to ask me this time last week, do I think Michigan wins easily over Iowa? I'd say definitely whatever spread it is, they'll probably cover it. But something's telling me Iowa's going to keep this one a bit closer than 22-point spread would lead you to imagine. So my gut says, take Iowa plus the spread, but I do think the over 35 hits. Iowa's bound to have an over that hits. Michigan's a much different opponent than they've faced for most of the season. I see this one coming in the range of Michigan 31 or 28 to Iowa putting up a manageable, respectable 14. So I do like the over, and I do like Iowa plus the points as some pretty safe plays. But by no means is Michigan going to lose this game. They're definitely cruising to the playoff.
Yeah, now for the big matchup, we'll have Alabama versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. The last time that Alabama lost in an SEC championship game was all the way back to 2008 against Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators. I think since then they're something like 15-0 in SEC championship games. They haven't lost in Atlanta for a while. Spread here is at 6. Definitely love that spread. I think Alabama can straight up win this game outright. Last time that these two teams played, Georgia won 33-18. So Nick Saban wants some revenge. He already has LSU, revenge over LSU and Tennessee. So give me Alabama to complete the trifecta of revenge games, and give me Alabama. I'll take Alabama and the points over Georgia.
Okay, so we got a little interesting affair here. I am in the Georgia camp. I think no matter what Alabama is able to do, no matter what script Nick Saban's writing up in the locker room, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have the Georgia Bulldogs winning this one pretty convincingly, double digits, maybe 10, maybe 14. But I think Georgia will get this one done. I think Alabama had their hearts stopped in their tracks last weekend in a close one, a scare against Auburn, and I think the writing's on the wall here for Georgia to come in and absolutely put any hopes and dreams of Crimson Tide fans to bed here in the SEC championship game. I also just think, if Alabama wins, what is it looking like for the college football playoff committee? You're going to have Alabama that should get in, Texas over them who should get in, Georgia then one lost team against Alabama, they should get in then too and put them both in, but then where does that leave room for Michigan and Oregon or Washington? And it's going to be a nightmare, and you got a Florida State then to consider. So I think Georgia is going to make this one easy for the football playoff committee. And nonetheless, just cover the spread outright. Give me the Dogs. Their time to show up. This is what they've been waiting most of their season for. I know Alabama's had one heck of a run here the past couple weeks, but they've shown in the past that they've faltered in games before, and then also through a couple of their matchups, it's been a little too close for comfort. Down big in a couple games earlier in the season, down last week, almost dead. I think it finally comes to a halt here. So give me Georgia to cover the spread. And earlier today, the line was around like 54 and a half, already down to 53 and a half. I do like some of the plays on the under at that total. I think this one's a bit more of a defensive matchup. Georgia's not going to play around. Hold Alabama and Jalen Milroe. One of the tougher defenses that they've had to come across this whole season. I don't see Alabama putting up that much.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. So give me Alabama to cause some chaos and actually force the committee to actually have to do something, actually do their jobs. And I think if Alabama beats Georgia, I mean you have to put them in. You would have to leave Florida State out, even if they finish undefeated. But if Alabama beats the back-to-back national championship or champion, I think you have to put them in. But yeah, give me Alabama to cause some chaos for the committee.
I love it. I'm definitely my eyes gonna be glued to CBS at 4 this weekend on Saturday. I think Alex, quickly before we get into some parlay builds, you want to go over a hypothetical top 4 for the playoff, maybe top 6.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll start off with Michigan number 1 because they have the easiest game. It's almost a lock that they're going to win. So we'll go ahead and put Michigan inside the top 4, either at number 1 or number 2. Number 3, we'll put in Oregon, beating Washington. So if they win, they're definitely in the top 4. Florida State, I can't put them in because if you're talking about putting in the 4 best teams, Florida State without Jordan Travis is not one of those best teams, and I think they're lunch for whoever, if they get in, for whoever they faced. They're just lunch food. So give me Florida State, no matter if they win, to be left out. If Alabama wins, then you have to put them in, either at number 3 or number 4. If Texas wins, they're in. So you have Michigan, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama in the playoffs.
All right, so you got Alabama basically leaping over Georgia. You put in Texas and Bama with Michigan and Oregon, leaving Florida State and Georgia right out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm in a similar bandwagon to you, all except for the fact that I have Georgia beating Alabama. I'd have Georgia in at number 1. I agree with you in the sense that Michigan will be right behind them after their easy win this weekend. And give me Oregon at 3, I think, after they handled business with Washington, which leaves a bit of a question mark in at 4. I think Texas still wins this week. I think if Alabama loses, you got to reward Texas. So leave the 4 spot open. We have Florida State. Even if they do win, I think even if Louisville keeps it close, I'm with you on the fact that they get left out. So I'll have them at 5. And I'll have Ohio State with that one loss against Michigan at 6. So my playoff would be Georgia 1 taking on Texas, and then the 2 and 3 Michigan and Oregon. And my sneaky New Year's 6 matchup would be Ohio State and Florida State. Might be a tough one, tough defense for Florida State to crack with no Jordan Travis, but that would be my 2 teams out right there, 5 and 6.
Yeah, give me Honda McCord in the Ohio State over Florida State, and that bowl game.
Yeah, Honda McCord. Hopefully, no more interceptions taking on a Florida State defense. That'd be an interesting one for sure. But I'm excited to see how this week breaks down our college football playoff, especially that big matchup between Georgia and Alabama. Alex, without further ado, do you want to kick us off with some parlay building?
Yeah, let's get it right into it. So I'll go. Give me Oregon on the money line to win the Pac-12. Give me Texas to win the Big 12. Michigan. You know what? Give me the over for that game between Michigan and Iowa, and then give me Alabama plus the points. And that's going to be my parlay. We'll put $10 for a payout of 48.
Okay, taking Bama plus the points here. So I'm actually on the other end of the coin. I'm gonna take Georgia to cover 6. I'm also gonna take Oregon in their matchup, also to cover the spread. And then the last play that I really love is the over 55 in that matchup between Texas and Oklahoma State. I think we got a lot to like for that one, and I'm gonna put 10 on it for a return of a potential profit of 53.20, and that's my play for the weekend.
Definitely lots of good plays. I'm excited to put in some parlays for the bowl season. Lots of teams that I like there. Probably going to put in Missouri, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State. So yeah, definitely excited for this week's games. More so excited for Alabama versus Georgia, and excited for these New Year's Six bowls coming up.
Yeah, absolutely, and a ton more action this weekend that's not available on Overtime. You got the Conference USA, the MAC, the Mountain West, the AAC, the Sun Belt, all kicking off their conference championships. Me personally, probably going to steer clear of those games and stay fixated on the big dogs. But I like Liberty to go undefeated, easily handle New Mexico State, playing their 14th game of the regular season. Somehow they bought an extra game this year, Alex. They played in week 0, and here they are in week 14 as well. But just absolutely a big weekend in terms of writing out the Final Four for the college football playoff. Alex back in Bama, I'm back in Georgia. Everybody should be back in Michigan. Hopefully Oregon gets their revenge against Washington. But at the end of the day, we're going to be watching it, keeping track of what's happening so we can break it down on the field, on this podcast for all you guys. Let us know your hot takes for this weekend, any potential picks sneaking in for the college football playoff. Let us know in the comments. Love to hear what you think. Alex, as always, it's been a pleasure breaking down Week 13, looking ahead to Week 14 with you and the championship matchups.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Stephen, for co-hosting this podcast with me. Been a fun couple of weeks. We've made some money on some parlays. We've lost some money on parlays, but we had a lot of fun picking these teams and watching lots of football.
Absolutely. Sure, in a couple weeks we'll have maybe some coverage on the bowl games and the actual college football playoff itself. But for the time being, this might be our last little bit of predictions for a couple weeks before we break down Week 14 next Wednesday. So thanks for listening along. Thank you, Alex, as well. And this has been On the Field for Week 14.